Disclaimer. In this video, I will be discussing religion as it relates to Nine. None of the sentiments expressed reflect my personal beliefs and are not a criticism of religious peoples. This video also discusses the occult as it relates to Nine. If there is missing information or information you feel doesn't accurately represent the occult, understand that it is only in reference to the world of Nine and what came up in my research. Imagine you wake up and everything around you is much larger than you are. You're too small to see outside the nearby window, but you notice a corpse lying face down in front of you. Next to it, a strange occult looking object. As you venture outside, you discover post apocalyptic ruins of a city that once was, and you're soon confronted with menacing metal machines pursuing you and a fellow ragdoll whom you just met. This is the world we enter in Nine.
Hi, my name is Blade. Let's talk about Nine. Nine is a 2009 film directed by Shane Acker and distributed by Focus Features. The film is based off of Acker's 2005 animated short of the same name. Acker's original Nine short was nominated for Best Animated Short at the Academy Awards and caught the attention of Tim Burton, who acted as a producer on the later feature film. Nine was theatrically released on September 9th, 2009, or 9909, and met with mixed reviews. While many praised the film's unique concept and visuals for the time, Nine was unfortunately and kind of ironically labeled by many critics as generic and lacking substance. This is kind of crazy to me because I think anybody who has seen Nine would not use either of those descriptors to describe the movie. I honestly think it kind of suffered a lot by being one ahead of its time, but also an animated film not targeted towards children. But I think a lot of people took their kids to the movie assuming it would be a kids movie because it was animated and the main characters are little rag dolls. But Nine is a fascinating movie that contains probably a bigger ultimate meaning than some might even realize, and honestly has some ties to the occult and some very interesting layers. So let's go ahead and get into it. When talking about Nine, it's vital to mention the impeccable attention to detail in this film. The story is enjoyable without it, but upon inspection, there is an incredible amount of lore. Not just concerning how the world of Nine came to be either, the underbelly of the film's plot and themes involves a whole belief system associated with occult practices and writings. It's fascinating and honestly really impressive.
I will link below an amazing video by the theorizer going over the entire history leading into Nine. However, I will give a brief synopsis here. Essentially, as part of the marketing for the film, a Facebook account was launched posing as the scientist featured in the film.
This ARG type of marketing is something that has happened from time to time, usually with found footage horror films like The Blair Witch Project or Cloverfield.
Through the Facebook account and some further sleuthing, we discover the film takes place in Germany around the late 1930s or early 1940s after a 10-year war. This is an alternate timeline from our own where World War I lasted 10 years. The Chancellor of Germany then funds a project overseen by the scientists to create an advanced machine.
Note, this is a fictional alternative timeline, so while the Chancellor does symbolically represent Hitler, he is not Hitler, nor does Nine make any references to the Holocaust.
That being said, the scientist, through occult alchemy, transfers his intelligence to his creation, known as the fabrication machine. Impressed with the machine, the Chancellor seizes the machine and puts it to work, in the process unveiling intent for war. Ultimately, the fabrication machine creates more machines as part of the war effort, which backfires when the machines begin enacting their own agenda, attacking all humans. Eventually, a gas is released by the machines, killing off humanity. However, prior to humanity's extinction, the scientist puts his occult practices back to work using a talisman to transfer his soul into 9 ragdolls, known as Stitchpunks, as a last effort to preserve humanity.
All of that background information is really interesting, and I think it's a kind of a shame that people who might just put on the movie one day and enjoy it go without even knowing there's all this really like rich developed backstory behind it. I mean, the movie is definitely fine without it, but I think it's really cool that Shane Acker took the time to create this whole war and everything that leads up into the events of Nine. You know, because when you're a writer, sometimes people will give you the advice to write out the entire story, even if not all of it's seen on camera or on, I guess, here, it just in the film. Um, I have a feeling that might be what Shane Acker did, but I'm really happy he made the decision to put out some of that lore that he crafted for this world because it's really interesting. And furthermore, it leads into kind of a really, really existential and profound overall meaning to the story that sounds a little bleak at first, but I promise if you stay with me, there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Nine covers a range of aspects of humanity that are, let's say, less than desirable, specifically war and religion. On a surface level watch, these topics and how they relate to the film's themes may not be too obvious.
I think this partially goes back to Nine being animated film. You know, audiences are accustomed to animated films being made for kids or at least family friendly.
With that in mind, it's easy to take the plot at face value and as is, but Nine is rich with not only the aforementioned lore, but also existential themes and commentary on humanity. The scientist plays God both in the creation of the fabrication machine and bringing life to the 9 Stitchpunks. Furthermore, the way he provides intelligence to the fabrication machine and life to the Stitchpunks is through alchemy, which is a precursor to the subsequent occult symbolism that is arguably the basis of the entire plot.
So you might be sitting there thinking, Blade, I don't know anything about the occult, and honestly, this all sounds really wild and crazy. Well, allow me to break it down for you, or at least to the extent I was able to research. No one come for me, I did my best. Once again, I'll be linking a video down below, this time by Odd TV, that gives a detailed explanation of the occult practices Nine utilizes. For my purposes, I'm only going to mention the relevant occult beliefs in relation to the message and plot of the film.
There are two occultists primarily associated with Nine: Aleister Crowley and Paracelsus. Crowley, in his writings, describes how humanity must enter an era of tribulation where we purge our impurities. There are numerous impurities involved in the purging, but the primary impurity found in Nine is religion.
However, it is important to note that Nine and Crowley are not anti religion or anti God. Crowley is referring to the traditional idea of religion, which has historically been said to hold back humanity since traditional religion are kind of stuck in their ways. And as we know, they have not exactly been afraid to enforce their ideas.
Continuing on, Crowley believes that since the 20th century, humanity has been living in the age of Horus, which is that tribulation period I mentioned earlier. In order to advance out of this age, humanity must purge their impurities and get in touch with their godhood through their own means, essentially becoming our own gods rather than awaiting some sort of divine intervention.
I know this all probably sounds crazy, but I promise it's relevant to Nine. Just stick with me here.
Moving on from Aleister, we must discuss the ideas of 16th century alchemist Paracelsus, who is directly referenced in the film. Boiled down, Paracelsus wrote findings and ideas in reference to the transfer of life. Sound familiar? His findings are what the scientist used to transfer his intelligence to the fabrication machine and life to the Stitch Punks. In fact, the book we see several times in the film is titled Annals of Paracelsus. Additionally, the nine Stitch Punks are something known as homunculi, which are a concept long involved in the occult world. Essentially, they are little men created through the transfer of the soul.
So, what does it all mean? Why do we have all this reference to alchemy and Paracelsus and this entire Facebook marketing scheme introducing all this lore? And how does that all wrap back up into the Nine Stitch Punks and the eventual story that takes place? Well, as I'm sure you can tell, the scientist was playing God, and playing God has its consequences. However, in 9, playing God has different consequences than we might be used to. Normally in film, playing God is not a good thing. We have several examples from artificial intelligence to science experiments in films such as Terminator, The Fly, or even last year's Megan that showcase the danger and horrors of playing God. But 9 isn't one of those movies. It might sound kind of crazy at first because the human race literally goes extinct at the hands of the fabrication machine, but allow me to explain why the takeaway from that is not some big warning about the dangers of tampering with AI.
Before getting into it, I want to make it clear that I totally understand how what happens with the fabrication machine can be taken as a warning about AI, but more so in a life imitates art sort of way. I don't think this was the intended purpose. When the scientist was playing God in the context of this film and the occult, there are technically no negative outcomes. The Chancellor is the one who abuses the machine for his war purposes, which unleashes extinction upon humanity. In a way, the scientist has nothing to do with this. Sure, it's partially his fault and it's a consequence of his actions. However, even then, there is still not a negative outcome in the context of 9.
While it might sound jarring at first, the destruction of humanity is actually a good thing from Nine's point of view. It's frankly the desired outcome. Scratching your head? Allow me to explain.
What if I told you the scientist is responsible for bringing humanity out of the Age of Horus as described by Aleister Crowley? As we learned, in order for humanity to evolve according to Crowley, humanity must claim godhood ourselves. The scientist does exactly that. He plays God in his creations, but not in the negative connotation we have become used to. This is a step towards becoming our own God and purging our impurities described in the Age of Horus.
Which leads me to how the Stitch Punks come into play, specifically 1 and 9. While probably being the least favored Stitch Punk, 1 is actually really important to the story of 9.
One is the first Stitch Punk, or, in other words, the oldest. He represents tradition. You may also notice he is dressed somewhat like a pope or another ambiguous religious figure. This is definitely not by accident. Keep in mind, he starts off as the group's leader, and where he has them hiding out for safety is a cathedral. Essentially, one symbolically represents traditional religion. 9, on the other hand, represents the complete opposite, challenging one at every turn. 9 represents, in my opinion, the new era and way of humanity. Furthermore, midway through the film, before the group begins following 9 more collectively, the cathedral is burned down. Symbolically, we have witnessed the fall of traditional religion.
However, the complete departure from the Age of Horus has not taken place. This is merely a step in the process. But see, I told you all of that background information was relevant.
The church burned down as a result of one of the fabrication machine's creations. Earlier in the film, 9 unintentionally awakens the fabrication machine, which had been dormant up until that point. He does so by placing the scientist's talisman into the fabrication machine, who then starts pursuing and stealing the souls of the Stitch Punks. Skipping to the end of the film, one sacrifices himself so that 9 could take the talisman out of the fabrication machine and save the group from being killed. Following this, 9 releases the souls trapped in the talisman and they ascend into the sky, bringing rain to the earth. This prompts the last frame of the movie where we can see the raindrops contain the essence of their souls, implying that humanity can start anew.
Welcome to the new era. The age of Horus is now over. The scientists, whether intentional or not, has enacted probably the most essential part of advancing humanity according to Crowley's point of view by playing God and creating the Stitchpunks. This then enables Nine later on to claim his own godhood, and of course, we also have the departure of traditional religion's chokehold on humanity. However, there is another layer beyond this that is somewhat of a shocking revelation when you realize it.
While the fabrication machine and the stitch punk seem to have their own motivations and personalities, they are all the product of the scientist. And not a product because he created them, they are quite literally created from his soul and his intelligence. What I'm getting at here is they are all ultimately the scientist.
Now, there are a few theories out there that suggest that the scientists did this on purpose, or that the fabrication machine was pursuing the Stitchpunks in order to be joined together all again as one whole, or, in other words, the fabrication machine is literally the scientist and he wants to be together again as one unit. I don't deny those ideas, but I almost feel as though those theories imply that the scientists had malicious intent, and that kind of contradicts the entire message of Nine. But please feel free to check out those theories and develop your own thoughts. There's definitely a certain level of truth to them, I just don't fully subscribe to them.
Long story short, Nine tells the story of the Age of Horus. You can almost view Nine as the last step or the period of the Age of Horus before humanity moves on into the next phase, having claimed their godhood individually.
So, what's the overall message? I believe the message of Nine, using occult beliefs as a vessel, is how we have to abandon humanity as we know it in order to grow. If we hold on to things such as the persecution many of us suffer at the hands of outdated religious views, we will never advance. Again, I want to note I don't think this is an attempt to scrutinize people who are religious or have spiritual beliefs. Remember, a key aspect in the film and Crowley's writings is claiming our own godhood ourselves. So this is not an FU to God or other deities, just the notion of becoming our own gods rather than awaiting a miracle of some sort or a divine intervention. Night is a film that greatly showcases how animated films can be so much more than simple family films about talking animals or quirky characters braving an epic adventure. Even while having a reputation for lacking substance, Night has garnered a cult following it 100% deserves, as it has a compelling story that offers viewers many existential questions without being too pretentious or distracting from the face value story. Nine is built upon rich, detailed lore that would have only made the film better if more of it was present in the film. It's a fine film without it, but the inclusion of the lore could have maybe heightened an already fascinating story. Overall, I give Nine a 4 out of 5 stars. So, what did you think about Nine? Feel free to let me know in the comments below, and I honestly would really suggest checking out the videos that I linked and searching Nine in the YouTube search bar, because honestly, there was a lot of content about this film that was really interesting, and I just recommend you fall down the whole rabbit hole because there is so much there. I've completely lost hope on the potential of a Nine sequel, but will hold out. And before I end the video, please feel free to subscribe and turn on that notification bell. I'm really excited to be starting to use my channel more this year, and just so you know, this is the first video in a long series of video essays. I'm going to be uploading new installments every first and third Wednesday of the month. My next video is going to be on the movie A Ghost Story. And yeah, I'm really excited to continue making these videos. So in all of these videos, I'll be breaking down the films, or maybe I'll be coming in with some other topic in relation to the film. But every week, I will also be doing a makeup look or an outfit look that's kind of inspired by the film. Today, I tried to kind of do circle eyes to match the eyes of the puppet, and of course, like the green color palette. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope I'll see you again, and have a nice day.